everybody. My name is Chris Alamani. You're watching the Alberniweather podcast for November 18, 2024, and it is just past 11 o'clock, just past the time for the models to update. So it's a good time to look at the storm that is coming. It's currently 4.7 degrees outside in Port Alberni at Alberniweather HQ. Wind direction is from the south, pretty much calm. Little bit of particulate in the air, but air quality is generally good. No rain in the last 24 hours. Yeah, so one big thing we're going to look at here and keep an eye on for the next couple days is going to be the barometer, because we should be seeing this come down a little bit as this bomb cyclone, as it's called, or as it will be referred to, you've seen in the media and on here. Let's go check it out. So first I want to show you what the satellite looks like right now. It's not really on this picture, but this is the first band of wind and rain that we will get, and it will be the strongest one. That isn't going to come in until next Tuesday, or sorry, until Tuesday evening. So we have a ways to go. But if we look at the Pacific here, and we just let this fill in so that it will start up for us, you'll be able to see it starting to generate out in the Pacific. So just looks like a big bunch of cloud for now, but this is what will be affecting us in the next 24 to 48 hours. As it moves across and builds and pushes up into the island and the rest of the Pacific Northwest. So what is that going to look like? So let's check out first the Ocean Prediction Center. So these are the folks that do the analysis for the open ocean, but they have some nice uh, imagery that looks good, so we can see how it's going to work out. So this is the 24-hour forecast from last night, and it's valid for tomorrow morning. So this is where we can see this rapidly intensifying low and why it's doing that. So it's a low that is currently up in the Gulf of Alaska, and it's moving down the coast, and then it has another low that's coming up through all of those that long thing of clouds here. So it's embedded in this beast here. That's this low coming along, and they will combine and rapidly intensify. So you can see here it says 988 and 980. That's for each of those lows, and then here it says 50, and that's what they expect will be the drop for this low, and it will end up just around there. It's not going to come any closer than that, which is the good news, because we don't want this to be any closer than in what it is. It's going to cause enough trouble already. But that's the expectation. So if we look at the next one here, you'll see the 48 hours. So this is Tuesday afternoon, and now you can really see that the low has deepened, has combined, and some really impressive winds. So this is 50, 65 knots. This is 50, 60, 70 knots in that low. Thankfully, this is very far offshore. I think Environment Canada said it was around 400 kilometers. Maybe that was nautical miles, not sure. Probably kilometers, but very far offshore. So the low itself is not the big generator, or at least it's not the one that's going to affect our winds here, but it is slinging us this front that's going to impact Vancouver Island, and that will bring the wind with it. So you can see even on this map, this is a 50 knot southeasterly wind off of the coast of Vancouver Island. So that's 100 kilometers an hour. So if we look at the models now, so we can see what to expect. I'm just going to update this. We know that it's all fully up to date. There we go. So let's go look at the winds here. So for our wind gusts, again, these are the maximum gusts, so not sustained, but just the gusts. And I'm just going to go until I see, make sure I know which one it's. So it's still just updating, but so it goes to there. So it's going to 1 a.m. on Wednesday. That's far enough for our purposes. So this is 1 a.m. Wednesday. This is the new model for this morning. So I'm going to back it up here and we'll see how this builds in. So Monday night, there will already be some wind starting on Tuesday morning. So this is going to be a fairly long duration event as that low deepens and really forms off of the coast. It's going to swing in this long bout of wind. So this is 30 knots, and I'll bring up the calculator here so you can see that. Here we go. So 30 knots, so starting around 50 kilometers an hour, southeast, that's on the west coast, and on the Strait of Georgia. There is a chance that that the ferries could be canceled throughout the day on Tuesday. Um, we're already seeing 30 knots, 35. Looks like, yeah, 35 knots in the Strait of Georgia. So that's getting up into 60 kilometers an hour. Um, and that's by 10 a.m. Tuesday. So that's already getting up into the area where they're going to start canceling ferries. By, I would say, noon or maybe 4 o'clock or so on Tuesday, then you're definitely going to see cancellations. I would expect the evening ferries from 4 o'clock on thereabouts for BC ferries definitely canceled. So we're looking at here. This is 7 o'clock in the evening. This is really when it is at its peak. But even if we go back here to 4 o'clock Tuesday, there's 25 knots off of Vancouver. So that's just under 40 kilometers an hour. 25, 35. So that's 60 kilometers off of Nanaimo. Um, and we're starting to see stronger winds here on the west coast. One of the interesting things about this storm is it is easterly to start. So that's unusual. It's going to be coming straight down, well, not house down, but straight out of the valley, basically, onto the Strait of Georgia. As you can see, these are dead easterly. Um, which is unusual for a windstorm here. Um, but it should switch around to southeast or so the later it goes. So you can already see out in the offshore. These are already southeast, the strongest winds. So it will strengthen through the afternoon and into the evening on Tuesday, so from 4 to 7 p.m. Now we're starting to see these blue areas. That is, just make sure, that's 55 knots. So 55 knots is 100 kilometers an hour. So that's off of Parksville, Denman Island, Hornby Island, Qualicum, that part of the Strait of Georgia. So there's no way that the ferries will be running through that, so definitely a cancellation. And really impressive winds on the west coast here and in the Juan de Fuca Strait especially. So this is 55, 60, 65, 70. So 70 knots. And I don't know if that little dark area is 75. Yeah, it looks like it is. So it looks like 70 knots just offshore, um, which is that's up to 120 or so. Yeah, 130. So that's offshore. But yeah, very, very strong in the Juan de Fuca Strait here. That's 55, 60, 65 knots. So we could see 120. Um, we could see 120 or 110 kilometer an hour winds in the probably on the lighthouse there off of Victoria. Maybe Port Renfrew might see 100 kilometers an hour or 90 kilometers an hour or so. We'll just have to see what happens on the Juan de Fuca side of things and on the west coast. There's also this is 100 kilometer an hour off of Tofino and Ucluelet and Long Beach, and these are easterlies. So you can see this is straight east at 7 o'clock, and that part worries me for the Alberni Valley. You can see here there's some pockets of very strong winds here, 100 kilometer an hour winds just to the east of the Alberni Valley. Now that just might be Mount Arrowsmith. It could be that we end up in the shadow there, but there's also some along the Beauforts here. You can see. So I would be really worried that there could be some gusts that come down the ridge and into the valley. So I really think there is a possibility of very strong winds in the Alberni Valley for this. And that appears to be the peak. The model's been pretty consistent that that Tuesday evening will be the peak, but it will last. So this is 10 o'clock. You can still see 100 kilometer an hour winds in the Strait of Georgia, and still along the west coast all along. Um, Wednesday 1 a.m. Just gonna make sure we're still, yeah, on the new model. So Wednesday 1 a.m. still strong winds going up across the island. So I believe there's going to be some strong winds in the Alberni Valley for this one, just because of that easterly or southeasterly. You can see this is east, this is southeast. Usually it's the southeasterly storms that really impact the Port Alberni area. So I would be very worried about that. Um, Another thing I want to show you, or just to be aware of. Uh, So I just want to look at the tides here because we are at the end of November. Okay, so here's the tide predictions for Port Alberni, and there's a little bit of good news here. So this is the high tide on Tuesday. 2 o'clock is about 3.3 meters, which is a little lower than on the weekend with the full moon. And then we actually go down to a low of just above the meter or zero mark, so zero point 0.2. And that low is at 9 o'clock. So the good news is the highest winds are going to probably be in this area when it's going down and reaching the bottom of the tide, which is good. And if we do still have winds through the night, which we probably will, it's not a huge tide, so at least it's only a 2.7 meter tide, but I would beware of storm surge. If we do get really strong winds up the inlet, we could see a higher tide than this. I'm just gonna see if I can move this along here. Yeah. So 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning is the high tide on Wednesday, and then another high at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So thankfully the tide is helping us a little bit. It shouldn't be too bad. It doesn't line up with the winds, I don't think. But you are going to want to keep an eye on the water levels. If we do get that high wind, it will push water up into the inlet. So and if we get any low pressures, then it'll help that as well. So just beware of that. It doesn't look like we'll have it coinciding, so that's good news. But it's good to be aware. So I'm just going to go back to the model here. So this is our 7 o'clock outlook, and that is the peak of the winds. The other aspect of this is going to be a little bit of rain. It's not a huge amount, but it's worth checking. So I'm just gonna zoom this in again. So here we go. We're just looking at Tuesday. So there's Tuesday morning. You can see there's a little bit of this is easterlies coming out of Fraser Valley. There's a little bit of a mix here that the model has. Probably is just going to be slushy or sleet, a little bit of wet snow. I don't think it'll be anything that'll stick on the ground, but there is a possibility for some wet snow in the air on Tuesday morning. And then as this system approaches, so you can see it approaching here on the bottom. It's going to come up against a little bit of cold air as it enters the island and the lower mainland. So this is that 7 o'clock period when the winds are going to be strongest. Um, and there will be some rain associated with this. So, most of this green, this snowfall is confined to the higher elevations. It looks like Cowichan Valley, Nanaimo, Parksville, Courtney, the Alberni Valley. This is all gray, so that's all rain. Victoria as well. On the West Coast, though, this is interesting. It has a little bit more, but it's a little more complicated out there. So I would be wary on the mountain passes. Just gonna make sure that this is updated. So overnight on Tuesday, you're not going to be wanting to drive around any at night. But if you have to be out there, if you're stuck out there, it is going to be very windy and it is going to be raining sideways. So be careful out there. There might be some snow in the mix at higher elevations. So if you're on the hump or you're on Sutton Pass or the Malahat, then late night Tuesday, it could be quite ugly. So beware of that. Please don't go out if you don't have to, and certainly don't expect any of the ferries to be running. So let's just zoom out here, and just for the last bit, I'm going to show you what this storm is going to look like. So you can see it coming in. So there's the storm out with way west of us, but very, very strong, 949 millibars or hectopascals, and that's what's going to be driving this weather. So impressive storm. It's staying out there, thankfully. So you can see that it stays out there for its life, and it starts to fill in a little bit on Wednesday night, and weaken and go up towards the north. It's going to curl back around a little bit. There's going to be another storm that comes in on Friday, but not nearly as strong. A much more standard storm for the fall. So that's what we're looking at for this bomb cyclone. Thankfully, it's bombing away out in the Pacific and won't be too close to us, but there will certainly be very strong winds anyway. So don't expect any ferries to run, and don't go out Tuesday night if you don't have to. Um, And even if you have to, maybe try to make an excuse that you don't, because it's going to be very strong winds, potentially in the Alberni Valley as well. I think there's a good chance of that for this storm. And we're going to see anything from 40 to 60, maybe up to 70 or 80 kilometers an hour in the valley, and certainly on the coasts we're going to see 80, 90, maybe 100 kilometers an hour on the south coast. So that's the update for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe with the video, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.